Welcome everyone to our call. As we all know, it is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and it's our month that lots of people are wearing pink and doing different activities and hosting events that where we focus on pink. And I wanted to just personally invite some people who I know who are part of my life so they can share their stories and share just on a personal level what their experience has been. And then also, which I believe is very important, for them to share some tips with us. Um, Tips with us who have not been through this experience. Um, we all, I'm sure, think about what we would do if we were in their shoes, and would love to just have some knowledge, some wisdom from some ladies who have been through this, who have walked down this path before. So I'm so excited to have a couple ladies here to share their stories. The first one is going to be my sister, Sharita Stokes. And then I have a colleague and friend, Pamela Ellis. And I also have my aunt, Ruby Gort. And if she would like to share, I will also welcome that as well. We may have some other survivors who are on the call this evening as well, and would love for you guys to, as I go through these questions, share your answers to these questions in the chat. Because anyone who has had any experience, even if it's a loved one, if you think about something they have experienced related to the questions we're going through, please share that in the chat as well, because we're all about awareness and education. So again, thank you all for watching, and I'm going to go ahead and get started and ask some questions of our ladies who are on the panel. So the first person we have on the panel is my sister, Sharita Stokes. And Sharita, I'm gonna go ahead and highlight your video, and I would love for you to share with us your experience, kind of do an introduction for us, and let us know what your journey has been and how it started, when it started.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you ladies for joining us tonight. Hopefully you will get something out of our conversation. I was diagnosed with HER2 positive stage 2A breast cancer in 2012. No one in my family had, we didn't have a family history of breast cancer. And so it was a totally new experience. I didn't know anything about breast cancer. I didn't know what the stages meant. I didn't know what, anything. All I knew was that I had received the diagnosis of breast cancer. And, like anyone, I was scared, I was nervous, I was terrified. I didn't want to lose my breasts. I didn't know how, I just didn't know. I didn't know what questions to ask the doctor. So it was like a hurry up and wait type of situation when you're first diagnosed. So there are series of exams and tests that have to be run, and you're really not, I guess, taking any major action, chemo and surgery, anything like that right off the bat. When you first get the diagnosis, for me anyway, I just wanted them to get it out. Whatever you got to do, get it out, save my life, do what you have to do. So it was very scary. And yeah, I just didn't know where to go. But I did have the assistance of the breast cancer support group at my church, and they helped me walk through the process. So that's kind of my story. Part of my treatment was chemo. I had radiation. The stage 2A diagnosis, I did not have a lump or any cancer in my actual breast. It was under my arm. So the A part of the diagnosis or the staging meant that it was confined to my armpit in the lymph nodes. So I had to have my lymph nodes removed, but no surgery on the actual breast tissue.
And let me ask you another question, Sharita. Thank you for sharing that. How did you discover that you had breast cancer?
So I've been doing myself breast examinations. Everyone typically focuses on the breast tissue. Well, in my case, there was nothing found in the breast, but I felt a lump under my arm. I thought it was a boil or something. I brought it up to the doctor. She's like, well, let's just take a look at it, you know, use your warm compresses and see if anything changes, if it goes down, if it grows, if it becomes sore, if, you know, any discharge or anything like that. So we watched it for 2 or 3 weeks when after I first noticed it. It grew bigger, and then it just became very sore. And so she's like, okay, I'm not liking what I'm seeing. Let's go in for a biopsy. And so they took a biopsy of the tissue under my arm and ran, you know, tests and everything on it, and it came back as HER2 positive breast cancer.
I remember that. I remember that day. I remember when you told all of us, and you know, I know other people can relate because you either have had this experience where you were diagnosed and had to tell people, or you have someone that you love who told you. And as a sister, it's very scary. You know, I think when you told us, we all kind of lost it, because like you said, we didn't have anyone in our family close to us who had been through that experience. And so I'm sure for everyone, it's very scary at first, because you just have no idea at that point how things are going to turn out. Thank you for sharing that, Sharita, especially the fact that it was not in your breast, that it was under your arm. A lot of people don't think about that at all. Thank you. Thank you so much. Next person on our panel is Miss Pamela Ellis. And we're going to go through that same question. If you can just kind of introduce yourself and give us a little bit of information about that beginning of your journey. We're going to go through that for our 3 survivors who are on the call, and then come back around with question 2 and 3. So I'll go ahead and hand it over to you, Pamela.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for, you know, creating this platform just to share information. I think that you know, we definitely need to share as much. Prior to being diagnosed, I knew absolutely nothing about it. And I think one of the big myths is that people, for some reason, think it has to run in your family. You know, it didn't run in my family either. I didn't know anyone that had it. None of my aunts, my mother, no one had it before. So it was so foreign to me. And of course, I would hear about it all the time, and especially in October and all of that. But it never really resonated with me. I just never thought about it. And I've always been obsessed with, you know, my breasts for some reason, because I used to have very, very large breasts, and I had a breast reduction. So I've always just kind of did self-examinations. I was very diligent about getting my mammograms. In fact, I got my mammogram in June on my birthday, as I normally do. And I discovered myself in November. So 6 months later, after being cleared, 6 months later, I find that I had a lump. And so initially I travel a lot for my business. So I was here and there, and I felt it, and I thought, you know, well, I felt things before. Let me watch it, right? So I watched it, and I was like, this isn't going away. So I scheduled an appointment with my doctor that normally does my well woman exam, and she really kind of blew it off. She was like, it's probably nothing. You can just wait till next year to get your mammogram. Because if we do another one, the insurance isn't going to pay for it. And that didn't sit well with me. And that's one of the things that I do try to educate people on, is be your own advocate and always get second opinions. And of course, I would love to hear it's no concern and don't worry about it. But I knew a little better than that. There's no reason I should have anything in my breast that should not be there. And I want to know why it's there, and I want to know now. So I said, no, I don't care if I have to pay for it out of my pocket. I want to get a mammogram. So I went through all of that, and it was a very frustrating process because I don't know what was going on with my doctor, because when she ordered the mammogram, she ordered a routine mammogram. And I did not need a routine mammogram. I probably should have just went straight to a biopsy because it was literally a lump. And so we went through that round, and that went on for about 3 to 4 weeks before they actually gave me my diagnosis of breast cancer. Mm. And, my experience was a little different. I'm a problem solver by nature. And so when I got the diagnosis at home on the phone from my radiologist, and I had to call her. I'd been calling them and calling them. They were supposed to call me. They hadn't called, and I wanted to know. And so I was like, I'm going to stay on this phone until they give me an answer. And so she piddled around, and finally I said, look, just tell me, do I have breast cancer or not? And she said, yes, you do. And so we went through that, and I said, okay, so what do I need to do? I know I need to see a doctor. What kind of doctor I need to see? Yada, yada, yada. So she gave me some information, and then I have a cousin who's a doctor. So I quite naturally called her, and she gave me some more doctors. She works for MD Anderson, and that day, I immediately jumped out of bed, got a shower, and it was a moment when I was headed to get in the shower, and then I went back to my bed because I thought, I'm supposed to be crying, like I'm supposed to be afraid, but I wasn't. I just wanted to solve the problem and get it out of me. Like I'm just that's just me, who I am. Like I'm like, let's just do it. Let's deal with it and move on. And so and that's how I dealt with it. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't pick up the phone and call anybody. My mom passed 2 years before I was diagnosed. I'm kind of like the strong person in the family. So it was kind of hard to like share that information with them because I know they would have been devastated. And so I just kind of protected it from them. And I had a couple of friends that I told eventually. And then I had close friends who figured it out. But yeah, it was a different experience for me. And I didn't tell a lot of people.
Yeah. And that's the thing, I think, to know about any of these things. It's like different people are going to receive it differently. Their experience is going to be different. And I think that's something we can respect, about each person's situation and their privacy. You hear people who say, I didn't know such and such was sick, kind of like Chadwick Boseman. Very private, and people are like, why didn't he tell, So I respect everyone's way of processing it, of dealing with it. So thank you for sharing that. I'm so glad you did have the support that you did have, even if it was just that inner strength to be able to say, I'm not gonna feel like this is all over. Let's figure out how we're going to handle this and move forward from there. Sorry about that. My video was off. Thank you so much for sharing
that I needed to tell. So I had everything that I needed, and I had to protect my energy, and I had to protect my space, because I had decided that I was going to beat it. I believed the word of God, and I was just standing on that, and I had to protect my space. So I asked God to reveal to me who I should tell. I don't have parents. So, of course I would have told my parents, but yeah, that's how I do that.
Yeah, thank you so much. Our mom she's no longer with us here in the flesh. And she also went through breast cancer. And Sharita, do you remember how old she was, how old mom was when she was diagnosed? She was up in age.
She was in her 70s.
She was in her 70s.
Yeah, 72, 73, 74, somewhere around there.
Yeah, so it's everybody's experience is different, and like I said, we totally respect everyone and how they process that. And we know that inevitably, all of us will have people throughout the rest of our lives who we will hear have gone through this journey. So thank you all so much for sharing what you've shared so far. So now my Aunt Ruby is on the line with us. And if you don't mind, kind of giving us your story, your kind of the beginning of how everything went for you when you were diagnosed and what that journey was for you. And I
You got to
think,
unmute her.
okay, let me unmute her. Oh Lord, sorry y'all.
Ruby, hold on 1 second. Your mic is muted. Hold on 1 second.
Is that better?
Yes,
There we go.
yes, we can hear you.
I'm sorry. I am one of the people that unfortunately has 2 bouts with breast cancer. The first one was in November 2008, and there are 2 different types. The first one in November 2008 was HER2 negative, and it was stage 3, very aggressive, and that was in my left breast. At the time that I was diagnosed, I only knew that one aunt had had breast cancer at the time, so I was totally in the dark about anything relating to breast cancer. So I pretty much had to have everything explained to me. So when I found the breast cancer, it was actually picked up on my annual mammogram. And I had no pain, no symptoms, nothing. And until it was pointed out for me by the doctor that had done the mammogram, I couldn't feel it. I couldn't do anything. And then it was at the top of my left breast. And at the point that he showed it to me, and then after then, I just kind of felt it all the time. And it seemed like it was every day growing bigger and bigger. And it was very scary to just go in for a routine mammogram and end up, I had to call you back and say, we need to do a biopsy. And so they did the biopsy. 2 days after the biopsy, my PCP's nurse called me and asked me, was I at home? And when she asked me that, I'm like, okay, if she wanted to know if I'm at home, it must be bad news, because otherwise she just would have told me it was okay. And after she asked me, was I at home? She asked me, was anybody with me? I'm like, no, I'm here by myself, because my husband was gone and my kids, they're grown, they're at work. So she told me that my biopsy was positive for breast cancer and referred me to a surgeon. So the day after I'm given this news, I'm heading to the surgeon's office to talk to him about removing the cancer. And my sister was very upset that they told me that information over the phone rather than calling me into their office. But I found out after then, in talking with other people, that's pretty much the way they do it. They call you and give you the results. So I went to the surgeon and he looked at it and looked at the x-rays and everything and said that it would need to be removed. And then I would have to see an oncologist. So 4 days after my diagnosis, I was in the surgeon's office, hospital, with the surgeon removing it. And they told me got it all. They removed 9 lymph nodes at the same time that they did the surgery to determine whether or not it had spread to the lymph nodes. Thank God it had not. And so after that, I had an appointment with the oncologist. And that's when she explained that my cancer was HER2 negative, which is pretty much the worst kind you can have is the most aggressive kind. And it was stage 3. And at the time that they're telling me it's stage 3, I had no knowledge of how many stages were involved in cancer. And when she told me it just goes up to stage 4, and I'm like, well, I'm at the top of the list almost. So when she was explaining all of the therapies that they were going to use for my cancer, they go through and give you your survival ratio. And the type cancer that I had and the size, she only gave me a 40% chance of surviving for 5 years, because that's kind of the term limit that they use, 5 years. And so I'm an accountant by profession. And when she tells me I only have a 40% chance of survival, I'm like, I don't even have 50-50. So you're telling me 40%. And thank God my sister was with me, and she just kind of took it all in stride, and she goes, well, she's going to be in that 40%. So tell us what we got to do to beat this. So she recommended chemo. I did 3 months of chemo treatments every 3 weeks. Then I had to do radiation for 6 weeks. And radiation is a little different from chemo. In my case, it was, because each therapy is kind of unique to the type cancer and for the person. So my chemo was once every 3 weeks for the 3 months. And then the radiation was 6 weeks, but radiation is 5 times a week. You go Monday through Friday. And so I completed the radiation and all the tests after that. I had been cancer free up until February of this year. And same thing happened on the mammogram. It was found, but this time it was in my right breast. And this is totally different type of cancer. It's invasive ductal sarcoma, and it was real tiny, barely picked up by the mammogram. It was just stage 1. She goes from anywhere from 0.5% to a stage 1. So it was tiny. And she recommended that I have that removed. But this time, after the surgery, I only had to do radiation, no chemo. And I've gone through the radiation and everything and had my final checkup with the surgeon in September. And right now, everything is fine. And the difference this time, I will have to do medications therapy. So I'm taking a medication. I'll have to do that for 5 years to increase my hormone levels, because this cancer is hormone generated. So I have to keep the levels right. So I'm taking medication. Throughout this, the first time I told my husband and my children, and I asked my sister, because she was there when we got the diagnosis, and I asked her to call my mom, because my mom is very emotional. And if you give her news like that, she's pretty much gonna break down, and I couldn't deal with that at that time. So, and then I allowed my mom to tell the rest of the family. And this time, I just called everybody myself, including Sharita, because she had gone through it more recently than me, to get some input. This time, because it was the second time, for me, it took me down a little more, because the first time, you're going through it for the first time, and you have a little more hope. But then this time, because it was my second time around, I'm like, oh my God, it's just attacking me, left and right. But I just prayed and prayed, and my church has a cancer group, and a lot of the women were calling me, encouraging me, and family members. And then I got uplifted and ready to fight again. So I'm in a more positive mood now and realize that all things are possible with God. So it's in his hands. And so I'm starting on my next year of survival. So hopefully it'll go okay. And
Praise
so
God, double survivor,
I'm
double
cancer
survivor.
free. Yeah, double.
Praise God. And we know our Uncle Tommy. I know he was on the main line.
Yeah.
Day
He prays
and
with
night.
me every morning and every night now to keep me centered. And so without him, I probably would have lost it.
Thank you, Uncle T. Thank you so much, Ruby, for sharing that. And did y'all hear that? Those of you who are listening, there's 2 people who discovered their breast cancer from on their own, their self-exams. And then Aunt Ruby's was through her mammogram. And that is so important for us to really hear. I mean, I'm also taking that in myself, you know, because there's so much, I guess, advertised about, you know, mobile mammography and get your mammogram. Have you done it this year? You know, all those kinds of things. And it is kind of an annual emphasis. But, you know, hearing that from you guys, and I had heard your stories before, but I just want to really emphasize that to the people who are on this Zoom and maybe watching this recording later. 2 out of 3 of the ladies who shared so far discovered their breast cancer through self-examination. Thank you so much for sharing what you shared so far.
One thing I wanted to add, can I add one thing, Leslie? I did want to add that at one point they were saying that you should have your first mammogram at 40. And now, you know, with folks discovering their cancer on their own, you know, folks are getting diagnosed earlier and earlier. So it's important to know your breast. If you feel anything that doesn't feel right or doesn't look right, or, you know, spots or itching or swelling or rash or anything, you know, raise those questions. Don't wait until you turn 40 to go have your first mammogram. Ask your doctor. You know, your insurance may not pay for it, but if you're, you know, having issues, it's worth, you know, the extra cost of going and get those mammograms done. If you know that something is off in your body and it doesn't sit well with you, please go get those mammograms before 40.
Yeah, thank you so much that's so important. So important, because that's another thing we always hear, 40 and up. And then so many of us, even at 40, don't go ahead and get started. It's just like the colonoscopy and, you know, other things that we're supposed to be taking care of related to our health. Thank you so much. I see Aunt Nessa on here. I'm calling you out, Vanessa. If you don't want to come on camera and share, it's okay. Vanessa is the aunt of 2 of my good friends from high school, and Nikki Freeman. If any of you guys were joining because you were wanting to hear from Nikki, she was not able to hop on this evening because she wasn't feeling well. So I wanted to see, okay, I think she hopped off. So their aunt Vanessa was on, and their story, some of you guys know, I would say it's unique, but probably not uncommon, that they have several people in their family who are either survivors or have passed away due to breast cancer. And what I'm going to do is ask Nikki if she has any information on their story that I can forward along to everyone and share with you guys. And if any of you survivors or any of you who are knowledgeable about, you know, genetic testing and things like that, that we can also be aware of. I've heard you all say that you don't have to have a history in your family to be diagnosed, but it is also important for us to keep that in mind, that may be something you want to do, is do testing. So anyone have anything they can share on that, on the genetic testing, or were you tested, and just kind of any wisdom there?
So Leslie, I was speaking on a panel yesterday, and I had heard about the BRCA gene, breast cancer gene, but I thought it could only come from your mother. It could come from your mother or your father's side.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I always tell people, if you don't know either side, you don't know your mother's side or you don't know your father's side, what my oncologist did was she tested me for it because I didn't know my father's history. And so she said, I'm going to go ahead and say there's suspicion on your father's side, because if I don't, the insurance won't pay for it. But if you have a history of breast cancer in your family, the insurance will cover it and you should be tested. Unfortunately for me, I don't have the gene and it didn't come from anyone in my family. But I just always encourage people that, you know, if you don't know, then err on the side of caution and get tested for it.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
I want to add to that too. If, you know, some people get discouraged when they say that the insurance won't pay for it because you don't have it in your family. But if it's something that you're really interested in and you want to get tested genetically, I mean, you can definitely pay for it yourself. And, you know, we have it, I believe you can use your flexible spending, you know, whatever. There are ways to cover the cost of getting the genetic testing. So just because the insurance won't pay for it, you know, it's still an option for you. Because like Leslie said, we didn't have it in our family either. And so it's worth knowing and having the knowledge and the information. So
Leslie.
Uh-huh.
This is Ruby.
Yeah.
On my first breast cancer, we didn't do the BRCA test because at that point there was no history of breast cancer in my family except for the one aunt. But after I was diagnosed, it seemed like the floodgates opened and we just had several episodes of breast cancer and cousins.
Oh, wow.
And it just kind of exploded. And one of my younger cousins even had stage 4. But fortunately, she went through all of her treatments, but she did the mastectomy and she's doing fine now. But both times I had the lumpectomy, and the second time I did do the BRCA test to determine whether or not this could reoccur again or whatever. And the test showed that I did not have hereditary occurrence of breast cancer. It was just something that happened. And
Wow.
so I'm just praying that it doesn't happen again, but if it does, I'll just have to deal with it.
Yes, he's the same God. Same God is still with you.
Like
and so, wow, how many family members then, Ruby? About how many would you say? Even with you not having the gene?
I had to list from my oncologist this time for her, like Sharita was saying, for them to make sure the insurance company covers it. And at that point, it was like 13.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Wow.
Well,
I don't know how much you know about my family is huge. When we have our family reunions, we have like 550 people there. So
it sounds like Jeff's family. Yeah, his is about the same.
So when you think about 13 people out of that many, it's not that bad. But of course, with me being one of them, it's bad for me.
Right.
So I just encourage everyone to make sure they do their mammograms, like Sharita was saying, and the self-exams. And that's all you can do is, you know, try to catch it if it does happen and then do the treatments.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. Ruby, out of the 13, were they in your immediate family, or were they cousins or?
Immediate cousins, like first, second cousins. To me, that's immediate. I have only one sister, so she's okay. And my mom or grandmom didn't have it, but one of my great aunts did. So, and she was the only one that I knew of in 2008 when my first occurrence happened. But then after then, it was like first and second cousins. most of them were cousins, a couple of aunts, but mostly cousins.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, and it's sad that it is becoming, I guess, more common that we know people and know so many people. I guess the good thing about it is that as more people are going through this experience, there's more education.
Right.
There's more developments that are taking place as far as the treatments and medicines and things like that. Would you all say?
Yeah, and
Yes.
talking about the treatments, I noticed the difference because my first one, the treatments that I got were almost totally different than the ones I got in 21. The time frame from 2008 to 21, they had made so many advancements in the technology and everything. And so I was glad to see that it's much better for people that have to go through it now. And I had less problems with the treatments this time than I did the first time because they have things to help you be more comfortable with
Yeah,
it.
yeah, that's encouraging.
Yeah.
I'm going to
I
add
had
to
two
that
other
too.
questions
Can
I
I add
wanted
to
to.
that?
Oh, go ahead, Shrita.
So when you guys were talking about technology and things are changing and there are all these different, discoveries and research to help someone survive breast cancer, there have actually been a couple of new pieces of legislation that was introduced into the not US, but the Texas. In Texas, for insurance, certain insurance companies would only cover a basic mammogram, but now they're diagnostic mammograms, they're 3D mammograms, they're all different types of mammograms that insurance will now cover because of these different pieces of legislation that have been introduced. So a regular mammogram only picks up, certain amounts of tissue, or only can see so deep into the tissue. And diagnostic mammograms is a little bit deeper, and then you have the different MRIs and 3D technology now, and those are actually helping people discover smaller cancers and allowing the earlier diagnoses and better survival rates for folks catching those cancers much earlier than they would have caught it with the regular mammogram. So just know that there are different levels of mammograms that are now available. And if just ask those questions up front, ask for those mammograms. If you're having an issue, ask for a diagnostic mammogram, ask for a 3D mammogram, and not just accept the basic ones. If you're
That's very good
insurance
information. Yeah, that's very good, because usually we just get the email or wherever from wherever we went before, and we schedule the appointment and go with what we're used to. So that is very good to know. And this information that our panelists are sharing, as well as the information I'm going to get from Nikki Freeman, if you guys want to be on the list for me to send that out after this call, please send me in the chat or contact me or whoever invited you to get me your phone number or your email, or connect with me on Facebook. So I want to send out kind of a summary of what we talked about with some additional resources. All right, so I had two more questions, but I'm going to just kind of combine them for you guys, and you share whatever is on your heart. But before I do that, when you were talking about the different technology that's available, Pamela, I wanted you to share a little bit about the breast self-check kit that's available through Plexus. I will be honest that I have two of those, and from what I understand, they help to make your hands more sensitive to be able to do a self-exam. I have not used mine, so y'all please slap my hand. If you know me, ask me later, like, have you done your self-exam? Because I honestly am not good with doing that, but I know I need to. But Pamela, I heard you share on a Zoom a couple of weeks ago, just your perspective about the sensitivity that you that's provided through that self-check kit. Can you share a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So Plexus does have this very awesome self-check kit. And it especially for women with dense breast tissue, and a lot of women of color have very dense breasts, and it's hard to detect anything. But the kit, it just allows you to glide over your breast real easily and pick up things that you normally wouldn't be able to pick up with your hand, because I'm always feeling like I feel something, but it's just a smooth overlay that allows you to go all over the area and do your self check. And I had 2 kits here, and I gave both of them away yesterday at the event I was speaking at. But in the month of October, Plex, they're very inexpensive, like $19 or something. And in the month of October, it's a buy one, get one free. So they're
yeah. So either myself or Pamela, if anyone is wanting to get one of those, y'all let us know. Let us know. So those last 2 questions are, what are 1 or 2 things that have helped you most during your experience with breast cancer, if you haven't shared that already? And then also, what do you know now that you wish you had known before your diagnosis or treatment? Because I know some of that information could be very helpful for others. So we'll go around the room, Sharita first, and then Pamela, and then Ruby. And then after that, we'll get ready to close because I want to honor you guys' time. All right, Sharita.
What I did not know before I was diagnosed, I didn't know anything. I feel like had I known, first of all, that there were different types of cancer, breast cancer. When I heard breast cancer, I was just thinking breast cancer, right? There are tons of different types of breast cancers out there, and each breast cancer has its own set of treatment. Not everyone receives the same treatment. Not everyone has surgery. Not everyone has chemotherapy. I didn't know what the different stages were. I didn't know what stages meant. I didn't know about, ductal carcinoma versus in situ. I just didn't know. It's a lot of information out there. So I was encourage everyone, whether you've had breast cancer or not, and mostly the ones who have not, educate yourself now as much as possible about breast cancer, because 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer. If you don't already know someone, you will know someone, or it could possibly be yourself. Educate yourself as much as possible. When you get that diagnosis, you want to be equipped with as much information ahead of time to just give you an idea what to expect, and what you're going to have to deal with over the course of your treatment. So education. I love what Pamela said earlier about the second opinion. When I was first diagnosed, like I said, I didn't have any lumps or cancer in either one of my breasts, but the first doctor I went to, her first thing was, okay, we're going to remove both of your breasts. And that didn't make sense to me. I'm like, what? I don't have, so I know that now, that I can ask for a second or third opinion. It may cost me a little bit more money because insurance is whatever, but if it doesn't make sense to you, you don't have to go along with the first doctor that, diagnoses you or has a treatment plan for you. You go with what makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, first of all, ask questions and then ask for a second opinion. Other piece of advice would be to get join a support group. Get your village around you. You don't have to tell any and everybody about what you're going through, but get you 2 or 3 really good friends that will walk through this with you, keep you positive, and not. I really understood what Pam said when she said folks, certain folks she knew would break down, or Ruby, you knew your mom would break down. You need folks around you that are going to be your rock, your support, that are going to be there to keep you positive and help you fight and get through it. It's okay to have that initial instance of fear, worry, doubt, whatever it is. But, you know, gather yourself together, put on your big girl panties, and, you know, come up with a plan and work your plan, stick with it.
Mhm.
Thank you, Sharita. All right, Pamela, your final thoughts.
Sure. So I ditto definitely everything Sharita said. Information is key. And, you know, I just think we should learn as much as we can about our bodies, period, and just about just good health. One thing that I didn't know that I know now is just how many factors can lead to breast cancer based, you know, what you eat, what you do. Because I couldn't understand, how did I get breast cancer? Like, what did I do? It happens, you know, it happens, but sometimes lifestyle, you know, I'm not a drinker, I'm not a smoker, you know, I do love sugar, I love good cupcakes, bakeries, and all of that. But I wish I knew more about, you know, some of the carcinogens that can lead to breast cancer or cancer in general. And yeah, I wish I had known more about it. And so that would be that. And then I think what really helped me get through was I did have not only my faith, but faith first and foremost, but I had a strong support team. I had a chemo buddy. I had a buddy that went to just my regular doctor's visits with me. They took notes, they recorded him, they questioned him, they did everything. Um, we would go home and read research everything he said, you know, and then having like I said, a cousin who's a doctor that helped too. But I was in charge, and I never, you know, one of the things I would hear a lot, and we as women of color, I don't know, maybe you guys have experienced, well, insurance won't pay for that. I'm not talking about insurance. I will pay for it myself. You know, when I went to get a second opinion, I remember walking away from my oncologist's office one day, and my friend had gone with me, and we didn't say anything to each other, but we both walked out just scared crazy because I just thought I was going to go home and die. I mean, she was just not positive. When they went in and did the lumpectomy, they didn't get clear margins, so they had to go back in and do a full-blown mastectomy. And she just went on and on. It was just, I thought that was the worst thing ever. And so I was like, you know what? I got to find a specialist. And we went on this mission to find a specialist, and we found this very good specialist, world renowned. He focuses specifically on breast cancer, and he does a lot of research on women of color. And I'm like, see if we can get him to see me. And I thought it would be a long shot. He was in Houston, and he agreed to see me. And I was still traveling and working. My friend called me. She was like, get your butt back to Houston. He said he can see you tomorrow. And I jumped on a plane, got back to Houston, and he looked at all my records. We had sent him all of that, and he just totally changed everything. He's like, no, you're fine. You know, this is what we're going to do. This is what you need to do. And just, he got me right back, reset, and got me back on track. So sometimes you have to go that, because this is your life. Your life is at stake. And so I know a lot of our people just get, they go in there and they sit there and they listen to whatever that doctor says, but you have to do your homework too. And the other thing I will end with is that your medical doctor knows medicines, and they know about medications and pharmacology and all of that, but they're not nutritionists. You know, they're not telling you everything, right? I got a nutritionist. I mean, I had to really get the full picture. You know, who you go first, who you see first is important. You go to a surgeon first, they go say, let's take it out. You go to an oncologist, she does medicine, she's gonna want to treat it. So, you know, it's just you got to know what the best plan is for you, right? So I would just leave anybody with, do your homework. This is your life. And don't be afraid of insurance that's not going to cover it. Don't be afraid of that. Hospitals will give you a payment plan. You will work it out. You will figure it out. Do what you got to do. Your life is at stake. So, and just please get information and get it before you need it, and then have that partner there that will do the research for you, that is taking notes. My friends used to grill those doctors because they know me, I'm all strong and I got no, they get down to the nitty gritty with them. So I was so happy. That's what helped me to get through it, for sure.
So encouraging. So encouraging. Thank you. Thank you, Pamela.
You're
All
welcome.
right, Ruby, what
Okay,
final thoughts would you like to share?
I first would like to start with encouraging everyone to do the self-exams, because as we have seen through this conference, 2 of the people found theirs through the self-exams. And also, in addition to the self-exams, do your mammograms. And once you do the mammogram, if they do find something, follow up on it. And one of the things I did from information and suggestion from my oncology nurse, she encouraged me to keep a journal. So I did that with the dates and all the different doctors that I saw. And it was very helpful because you're going through so much mentally and physically. There's no way you're going to remember all these people's names, the tests you did, the date you did it. And that's important for the doctors when they're trying to determine your treatments. So make sure you do it. Maybe you don't have to do it every day, but every time I went to a doctor, I would write it down. And one of the other things that I did not allow any negative vibes around me. I tried to keep everything positive because, like Pamela was saying, people start telling you this happened, that happened, and you really don't need to hear that because you have so much going on with your own situation that if you hear all this negative stuff, it's going to bring you down and leave you not as encouraged. And having buddies to go with you, my sister and mom went with me to all of my treatments and everything, and to give me support. And other family members were calling me all the time, church members. So it's important to keep your support group around you.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. And just remember, because the doctor is going to be asking you about the different traits that normally cause breast cancer. And like in my situation, they would ask me over and over because am I a smoker? Am I a drinker? And at that point, I only had the one person. So I didn't fit the profile of a person that would get breast cancer, but here I was sitting there with it. So it's important to know the traits, but understand that that's not the only thing that determines whether or not you get it. And I didn't dwell on, like some people ask why me and this, that, and the other. I never went through that because it was like, you could also look at it like, why not me? Because in our family, I'm one of the strongest people. And if it had attacked some of these other ones, they probably wouldn't have lasted the 12 years. So I just tried to stay positive and prayed a lot and allowed positive things around me. And I survived that first time, and I'm looking forward to surviving this time too.
Yes, in Jesus' name.
Yeah.
Y'all are survivors. Thank you all so much for taking this time. And I know October is not the only time where we need to be making other people aware and sharing. And I know that's not the only time you guys share. It's just really the rest of us who put more of a spotlight on this need for awareness during this particular month. So thank you guys again. I have to throw in one little bit of humor, Ruby, when you said at that point you didn't know anyone in your family when they were asking you those questions. I thought you were going to say at that point you were not a smoker and a drinker, but then after that you
Oh no,
but I should have known. I know that's not your testimony.
You kind of know me, that's not me. And
No,
that's why I was
you.
so
I was like,
shocked.
wait, what?
I'm not a smoker, drinker. and try to do most things right. But here I am.
I know. It's God works everything together for good for those
That's right.
who love Him and are called according to His purpose.
Yeah. And one thing about it, once my other family members started having, they were able to call me to get information, then I didn't have anyone to do that when I was going through it, but I did have church members and other people to support me.
Yeah, he knew who he needed to be there to represent.
Right.
So, and you talking about journaling your experience and different things like that, you know, that's something we got from our mom. She would write down, you know, everything, you know, from doctor appointments to questions about medicines to whatever that is. And
I write down all that stuff. Questions, what they say, and what I say.
Yeah, definitely.
Notebooks of stuff.
One last thing I wanted to just kind of piggyback on from what Pamela was saying about us all, how important it is for all of us to be an advocate for ourselves, advocate for our health. You know, when my mom was here, we would go to doctors to try to find out, you know, information about what she could do to help, you know, with her memory and with her digestion and different things like that. And at that time, I started learning a lot more about, you know, what are some things that we can do to combat that? What are some things we can do to get ahead of these things? And that's kind of why I do what I do right now in health and wellness. And Plexus, Pamela and I both work and are advocates for health. And we just continue to encourage people to be going to their appointments and not only rely on the doctor. We don't tell anybody to not listen to their doctor, but see what it is you can do, what's within your own power to, you know, cut things out of your diet or, you know, get your blood sugar down, work on your cholesterol, get the bad candida yeast out of our bodies, because we know that's the cause of most issues we experience. And so that's something that we do. So this call was not officially sponsored by Plexus Health and Wellness, but Pamela and I both do represent Plexus. And that's one thing we do is just really learn as much as we can about what the root causes are to any health concern that can be alleviated or can be prevented. We know many cannot, but I feel like at my age, at 49, if there's something that is in my family history that I can do something about to, you know, get away from those numbers or avoid having that diagnosis, I want to do whatever it is in my power to do that and to address those that way. So if you guys are on this call and want information about what Pamela and I do with coaching people and helping people on their health journey, kind of partnering with your medical professionals, please reach out to us. So with that, guys, I'm going to go ahead and close out the call in a word of prayer. And we'll call it an evening. So thank you guys again. Father, we thank you for this evening. God, I thank you for Pamela and Sharita and Ruby and Nikki, who was not able to join us. Thank you for their stories. Thank you for their testimony. Thank you for their willingness to just share information with us to keep us educated and aware and just not go to sleep on the fact that this is a real threat to all of us, men and women. So God, I thank you that you know their stories from the beginning to the end. You know, and you knew before they were even placed in their mother's wombs what they were going to experience and what you were going to call them to do with this story that they have. So I thank you for their time. I thank you for their lives. I thank you for all of the survivors. And I thank you for even those who we honor their lives who are no longer with us. And I ask you, Father, that not only during the month of October, but that you would just continually keep us as women and families, just help us to be advocates for our health, Lord, and to do whatever we can, within our own power. To be aware and to keep ourselves healthy and strong, because we got a legacy coming behind us who need us, and they need our healthy selves, Lord. So I just thank you for, again, for this time. I ask that you would bless these ladies and bless everyone who is on this call and everyone who will listen later. And it's in your son, Jesus' name I pray. Amen.